eventually we ended up with a spreadsheet about 1.5 miles long of different alcohol-free drinks categories. And I think, how many did we end up with this year?
Over 100. I think it's 130. I get emails every week from people saying, oh, I'd love to come and judge. I'd love to learn a bit more about these drinks. And whilst we're keen on educating and teaching people, they have to come to us already having some background and some proof that they are, making an effort and learning and having experience with these drinks.
Hi, Low No Nation, and welcome to this week's conversation on the Low No Drinker podcast. Now, today I am super excited. I'm kind of, I think the kids say fangirling out, because I get to speak to two people who have created one of the most exciting things to happen in the low no industry. And those are the wonderful Chrissie Parkinson and Mr. Chris Losh. Now, Chrissie and Chris are the double trouble duo who created the World Alcohol Free Awards. And I feel like I've got a special affinity with the awards, even though they're not connected to the magazine in any way. We both launched around the same time. They have been really open and shared loads of wonderful behind the scenes information with me. They let me come along and spy at one of the judging days. So it's been really, really exciting to watch the World Alcohol Free Awards, or the WAFAs as they become affectionately known, grow into such an international concern. Chris and Chrissie, between them, have decades of experience in the beverage industry, everything from editing to judging, consulting. They've covered it all. They've run the gamut. And today I'm really excited to get to speak to them about the inspiration behind the WAFAs, the perspiration behind the WAFAs, because it's a huge operation, and hopefully see if I can eke out any exciting tidbits about what's to come in the future. So to stop embarrassing myself from gushing too much, I will stop talking and say hello, Chrissie, and hello, Chris. How are you doing?
Hello, Denise.
Hi, Denise. Yeah, very good, thanks. Thank you for that heroic introduction.
It's fine. We loved it.
You deserve it. It's such an amazing thing that you've done, and it's no small task, is it? I mean, the World Alcohol Free Award. You didn't go in starting off with just like, oh, we'll do just a local one. We'll just see what the Brits are doing. No, let's go global straight away.
No, that's it. Think big. Think probably bigger than we realised when we started it, I think, to be honest. Like you said, it was an enormous amount of work, it's like far more than we thought when we first began it, I think. But yeah, you've got to think big, haven't you? Go big or go home. That's what they say, isn't it? So
that's what they say. Absolutely. Yeah. So what I'd love for you guys to do is, if I could ask you, we'll start with yourself, Chrissie, to just take us a little bit back to wherever you're comfortable to begin. What was the journey? Because Chris, every time I speak to Chris, he always tells me that you are the brains behind the operation. You are the powerhouse and driving force. So can you tell me a bit about what was the journey that led to you creating the World Alcohol Free Awards?
Okay, well, I was the group head of a global restaurant company at Hakkasan for many, many, many years. And I got to run a wonderful 2-year project looking at non-alcoholic drinks that we could use in our restaurants around the world. So I had a fantastic time tasting drinks from all over the world, getting to develop some new drinks, working with people globally who were involved with no and low, alcohol free. And I was really sort of fresh from that experience when Chris and I had the conversation which led to the WAFAs.
Yeah, that was almost exactly 2 years ago, wasn't it? That was at London Wine Fair. And I'm a drinks journalist by profession, so I've written about mostly booze for about 25 years and done magazines and so on. And I was at a London Wine Fair, which is a big international drinks fair in London, funnily enough. And I was on these kind of panels interviewing people from different areas of the wine trade, so independents, supermarkets, hospitality. And at the end of each of these sort of panel discussions, I'd ask the people on the stage, what's the big trend you're going to see in the next few years? And, this being an alcoholic wine fair, I was assuming they'd say, oh, it's going to be rosé, prosecco, orange wine, whatever. And every single one of them, unprompted, said low and no. And that kind of brought me up short. And equally, what brought me up short was the fact that while they knew it was a trend that was coming down the line, they weren't comfortable with it. They didn't know much about it. They didn't know what was good. They didn't know what trends were happening. And I thought, well, what they need and what perhaps this space needs is a competition, because that's how you say, this is great, this is not good, here's what the experts think. And it just gives everyone a foothold into the category. And to get to that point, I thought, what I need is somebody who knows this better than anybody else. And who did I go and see? This lady here, because she absolutely does know it better than anybody else. So that's kind of slightly circuitous description of how we got here. So we came at it from slightly different places, but we had worked together before, hadn't we, CP?
Yeah, we had. We'd worked together on various projects, and I suppose most relevant, the Sommelier Wine Awards, which you set up and I was head of judging for. So that was involved us judging wine. I've got a strong wine background, as has Chris. So we thought we knew what we needed to know about setting up a competition, but there was a bit more to it, I think, than we realised.
It sounds like you probably were the best placed people to do it, because you probably knew more than anyone else who would try to set it up. But I can imagine it has been a journey fraught with, should we call them learning opportunities? Along the way.
Yeah, well, I think one of the biggest ones is the kind of creation of the categories, isn't it, Chrissie? So we started off and we kind of said, okay, we'll have whatever, 6 or 7 categories. There'll be kind of, tea-based drinks, wine-type drinks, beers, spirits, blah, blah, blah. And then literally every time I phone Chrissie up, she's like, oh, we need another category for this kind of drink. And then that has to subdivide into 4 more areas. And then some of those have to subdivide further. And we ended up with a spreadsheet about 1.5 miles long of different alcohol-free drinks categories. And I think, how many did we end up with this year?
Over 100. I think it's 113. I'm just going to look. I'm sure it is anyway. But that's categories, subcategories, that making sure that, we're judging every type of drink, according to what it's trying to do and how it's been made, and really treating it fairly and getting the best out of it, really finding out.
Yeah, you don't want a flight of gin type spirits with a couple of whiskies in there as well, because you can't go from one to the other. It's not fair on the tasters, it's not fair on the drinks that have come in. So they all have to be entered into a separate category, and then those need to be flighted separately, just so the judges aren't jumping backwards and forwards.
Yeah. I don't know if you know what flighting is, but that's where, you start with, several hundred drinks and you organize them down until you've got, here's 6 or 8 or 10 drinks that we're going to give to that table of judges to taste those drinks together and to mark them. So it's this huge sort of funneling down process.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, there's already so many things that I want to unpack from what you guys have said. It's so exciting, isn't it? So we'll stick with the sort of categories at the moment, just because in terms of the low-no market at the moment, it's just huge in terms of creativity and categories, isn't it? So how do you even begin to determine, can all categories, all sorts of low-no drinks enter from any realm? Because there are very few rules at the moment around low and no. And every time I look, there's a new type of drink opening up. There's a new style of making this. There's drinks that try to replicate standard alcoholic drinks that we know, like you mentioned, gins and whiskies. And then there's like this whole other world of brand new, weird and wonderful things that, did you even have one drink that you had to serve warm, but it wasn't a tea? Or how did you
did.
start to get your head around all that?
Denise, what I'll do, I'll give you the basic, what can enter, and then I'll let Chrissie go into the more complicated stuff, since she lives the hell of trying to unpack this for about 6 weeks every year. So what can enter, basically anything from anywhere, as long as it's 0.5% or below. And we don't take kind of kids drinks, so soft drinks. So we're not taking, premium colas or anything like that. It's kind of, if it's a drink that you would drink at a time when you have an alcoholic drink, for instance, then that's the kind of stuff that we're considering. And as I say, there's the limit on the alcohol level as well. So nothing above 0.5%. Within that, it does get a little more complicated. And poor old Chrissie has to spend a lot of time emailing, phoning, Googling, don't you, to make sense of it all.
Yeah, you absolutely do, because the drinks are so complex, and people, because it's a new category, really, that we know that sort of non-alcoholic drinks have been around for a long time. We know of non-alcoholic wine being made in 1908. So, they've existed for a long time, but the creativity is really exploding now, and people are coming up with new methods all the time. And I'll give you an example with wine. So, back in 1908, it was just somebody made alcoholic wine and then they processed it and took the alcohol out. Now that still goes on in a much better technology is used, but that still happens. But you can go to the shop right now and you can buy bottles that look like a bottle of wine and they've got 0.5 or below, but they might be made that way, or they might be blends of botanicals and juices, or they might be based on vinegar, the old concept of a shrub or a switcher, or they might be based on kombucha, fermented with tea, or they might be something completely different. There are some drinks, we came to the conclusion that some drinks are it's almost like molecular gastronomy. People are, they're getting chefs into the development kitchen, they're getting sommeliers in, and they're really intricately piecing together very complex drinks. And as you said, some of them look like and taste like alcoholic drinks that we know, and some of them are like nothing you've ever tasted. They've invented something completely new. And all of that has to be broken down so that when our judges are tasting, they're tasting similar things, so they can genuinely find out which ones have done the best job. Yeah, they're comparing like with like.
So, how many entries did you have this year, and how did that compare to the first year?
So this year we had 450, which is about 50 or so more than the previous year. So it's a decent increase, like 10-15% up on the previous year, which is, pretty good. I mean, 450 drinks in the non-alc space is probably more than we were expecting when we started. I think it shows just how much is happening out there, not least because, we still feel as though we're probably barely scratching the surface.
Yeah.
I mean, half an hour spent on AF Instagram just shows you how many new things are coming out all the time.
Yeah.
So there's literally thousands of drinks out there. So we'd love to see the more the merrier, really. And especially there's bits of the world which haven't really kind of taken off yet, I think, aren't the CP? And, maybe Asia, we'd quite like to see a few more from there, but I think it's still quite an embryonic industry out that
we've
way.
Had a small number from Asia, but I think there are more hidden away. And I think sometimes it's the way people think about it. I remember working with a sommelier from Malaysia who, when I dug into it, his family had lots of drinks that they would have, with dinner or in the evening or whatever. But he didn't think of these in the same way he thought of drinks you'd have in a restaurant. So I think there's a, it's going to take time for people to realize that these drinks exist and perhaps commercialize them and make them available and export them. So I think we're going to see fascinating new things coming onto the market for quite a while still to come.
Absolutely, I 100% agree. I think that the market's in such an infancy that there's so much experimentation going on. There's so many new things coming in. Sadly, there are some things going out as well. But I think this is sort of the natural ebb and flow that will occur as the sector stabilizes itself and figures out what it's doing and how it's going to do it. And like I said before, there aren't many rules, so it's all sort of just making it up as we go along to make the best drinks in the best possible way. Hence why, awards like yours are fantastic for showing people that there is such a wealth of variety out there beyond what you see on your supermarket shelves from big alcohol?
I've got to say, as a drinks journalist, it's so exciting, this category, because if you work in, I don't know, wine or whiskey or something, it's got rules and regulations that have been codified over decades, hundreds of years, and they're designed to kind of limit innovation, or kind of at least keep it within certain set parameters. And to be working in an industry where basically anything goes. I mean, we've seen, like you mentioned earlier on, we had a drink which was was it a sort of tea, kind of, it was meant to taste like whiskey, but it was made like a tea bag, and you had to kind of soak it in warm water. It wasn't boiling, it had to be just below boiling for a very specific amount of time. And then it had to be drunk and savoured as a kind of whiskey. And there was two different flavours, wasn't there? There was a whiskey one, and was it a rum one or a tequila one? I can't remember.
Yeah.
But just bonkers. I mean,
It was
products.
bonkers. And you actually, I spoke at length to the producer who insisted that you actually drank it warm, even though you wouldn't drink a whiskey or a tequila warm. And yet it tasted great. It was a really, really interesting drink. But I mean, where did that come from? So left field, fabulous. We're glad to have products like that, because people are going through this creative process, and they can imagine something they want to drink, and then they're finding ways to make it, which is wonderful.
You see it a lot in the alt wine category, don't you, CP, where people are, as you mentioned earlier, they're trying to create drinks that do the job of wine without necessarily always having even been started with grapes. So they begin with, I don't know, cider vinegar or something, and then they build layers on top of it. And as you said, that kind of molecular approach. There's a company in, I think it's France, who entered a couple of products this year that were really interesting, and built with chefs and top sommeliers working almost scientifically with it, to layer up these kind of food-friendly drinks, which are designed to take the place of wine on a list. But as far as I remember, there's no grapes anywhere near them. They just kind of layered up these different flavors and spices and herbs to create structure and acidity and mouthfeel and all these kind of things that you would want in wine. It's fascinating, how they go about doing it. Astonishes me.
Yeah, and if you think about it, drinks like that, they are some of the most gourmet products that you could go to a shop and buy. They are kind of the equivalents of dishes that you would get in really high-end Michelin-starred restaurants. They've been made with such regard for ingredients and how they combine together. So that's a very interesting part of the world that we're in.
It's a difficult message, isn't it, for the AF space? The idea that these drinks are not a poor relation and therefore should be cheaper. And it's the biggest challenge, well, one of the biggest challenges they face, I think, is how you get people to understand that these drinks can be made with real craftsmanship and care and attention, and therefore, because of that, they justify premium pricing. I don't think it can be the only message, but I think it's the one that people are finding hardest to get to stick.
I think you're absolutely right. I actually, yesterday, as of time of recording, I posted a newsletter, a LinkedIn newsletter, about the reason why low and no drinks cost the amount that they do. And it was sort of looking at 5 of the top reasons that I hear from when I speak to founders on the podcast about the challenges that they're facing. And I love that you took that into the awards and said, we don't do soft drinks. This is not about judging what's the nicest soda. This is about drinks for adults, for adult occasions, when you want an alternative to an adult drink, but you want those depth of flavors, you want that experience, you want that aroma, that mouthfeel, that all of those things that you've come to know and expect. Because for those who have gone from drinking alcohol to not drinking alcohol, as opposed to those who never have, there is an element of missing, for most people, missing what you used to have before. So being able to find that in different categories, in different styles, for different occasions and different moments, because it's not just about finding one, ready to drink cocktail that you like. It's like, okay, well, that might be good for a picnic, but what do I want for when I'm having a meal, or what do I want as a reception at an event? There's so many occasions that these drinks can serve, and it's about showing people that that's available to them.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you really drill down into it, the one thing that alcohol can give to a drink, which is hard to replicate, is that it's a good preservative. But you can develop drinks which have the impact. You can have drinks, functional drinks, which can affect how you feel or your well-being. You can have everything. You can replicate everything. But alcohol itself, ethyl alcohol, it's a preservative. But that's what we're used to, obviously.
It's really interesting, isn't it? When we had all of our gold medal winning drinks at the London Wine Fair this year, and there's a couple of groups of kind of younger people came up and they were like, "Oh, what's the point of drinking these if there's no alcohol?" And it's like, well, when you go out to buy a drink, an alcoholic drink, do you just get like the cheapest, crappiest vodka that you can find in the corner shop? And they're like, no. It's like, well, if all you want is the alcohol, then why don't you do that? Because you're buying a brand and you're buying flavors and you're buying balance and you're buying an experience. All those are true for non-alcoholic drinks. Literally, if all you want is the alcohol, then you maybe need to rethink your attitude to what you're drinking and how. But nobody, unless they have a serious drink problem, very few people drink like that. And I think that's key part of this competition, is to help people understand where those good drinks are and how you can go out and choose with a bit of confidence.
Yeah, absolutely. I would like to talk to you a little bit, or have you talk to me a little bit about the judging, because what I saw was a well-oiled machine of chaos. It was it achieved both at the same time in a way that I have never seen before. There were so many drinks, so many glasses, so many people. It's quite an operation. So in the beginning, then tell me about the judges. You had judges from, I think, about 14 different countries. Who were the judges? How do you select who's going to be? Because it's not just this person put up a post about an alcohol-free drink so they can come along. You've really put a lot of effort, haven't you, into finding the people that you think will be best for judging these drinks.
Yeah, that they have to be people who have real interest and real understanding of the drinks. It just doesn't work to bring in judges who are experienced judges in the world of alcohol but don't know anything about non-alcoholic drinks, because I think maybe your listeners might not realise, but you train through your career in beverages. You learn skills and you learn a formal method of tasting, and that's extremely helpful. But if you revisit that from the point of view of non-alcoholic drinks, then some of the things that you have to understand and look for are missing. So we have people who've been formally trained from the alcohol world, and we have people who've come to judging without ever having judged alcohol. And in both cases, we have to see that they have understanding of the drinks and they've got genuine experience. I mean, honestly, I get emails every week from people saying, oh, I'd love to come and judge. I'd love to learn a bit more about these drinks. And whilst we're keen on educating and teaching people, they can't learn as judges. They can learn judging with us. We're happy to teach people and guide that, and we're happy to build people's knowledge, but they have to come to us already having some background and some proof that they are making an effort and learning and having experience of these drinks.
Because tasting and judging alcohol-free drinks is quite a skill, isn't it? A lot of excuse me, a lot of people still will compare an alcohol-free gin to an alcohol-full gin and not understand the nuances and what it is that they're supposed to be looking for. Um, so I can imagine that trying to find people that can present that understanding in a way that's fair to the drinks as well can be quite a challenge.
I think that's where so we have, as you say, one of the challenges with alcohol free is it's such a young category. You don't have a huge pool of people with experience in judging it or even drinking it to kind of draw from. So we have one of the reasons that we've ended up with judges from all over the world is that we went for people who have lots of experience, comparatively speaking, and those people are not always based in the UK. The other one, obviously, is that we're an international competition and different countries kind of taste differently or think different things are good. So we wanted that input as well. But yeah, it's been a challenge. But I think one of the ways round it is you've got kind of separate teams that all judge initially. So the flights get divvied out to different teams who taste them when they have got their results. So they'll say, first round, is this going through for a medal or is it going out, basically? And those results from their tasting will come to a panel of senior judges, including Chrissie and myself. And then we're kind of benchmarking how each team is tasting against the other teams to make sure that one team hasn't been too harsh and another team's been too enthusiastic, to make sure they haven't missed anything that's maybe complicated, that they didn't understand, these kind of things. So there's a lot of kind of safety nets throughout the judging process, which are designed to make sure that things get a fair hearing and don't slip through the net. And then, so that's the first round in the morning. Then in the afternoon on each day, we're divvying out the medals. So you get a different flight of drinks in the afternoon, all of which have been selected as medal worthy. And they'll be going, okay, here are our golds, here are our silvers, here are our bronzes. And again, that will be retasted and benchmarked by senior judges, Chrissie, myself, to make sure that the judging process is fair and rigorous across all the teams. As you say, organised chaos is a very good way of describing it, actually. There's a lot of bottles, and a lot of, where's this, what did that go, what did that get, who's seen this flight? There's a lot of that going on.
And then, because I noticed that you also had some other senior judges who were in the room supporting the judges as well. So it's not that they're just left to their own devices. There were people sort of guiding what they should be looking for rather than guiding their answers.
Absolutely. So there are things which, when you're tasting, it really helps to know. So, for instance, you might have a flight of drinks, and it's important to know if some of those drinks contain vinegar. I mean, vinegar is a really interesting thing. Vinegar is a fantastic base for non-alcoholic drinks. It can make something so refreshing and so full of flavour. But vinegar is acetic acid, and there are types of alcohol such as wine where if you taste wine and you notice acetic acid, it's a fault, something's gone wrong. So it's really helpful to people to know if the vinegar is meant to be there, and to have an understanding of what kind of flavours to expect. So we make sure that people are alerted to that when they're judging. But what we also do, and it goes back to all the categories and the fact that we're looking at so many different kinds of drink, we've got a couple of senior judges, James and Josh, who do a fantastic job. And we get them to go to each table as a new flight comes out and just chat for a couple of minutes to focus them on, what to look for in this flight, and also to make them aware. So I give you a good example of that. Non-alcoholic spirits, as we call them, have really changed over the last 3 or 4 years, to the extent that you can taste them and you can say, this kind of tastes first generation, whereas, this tastes third generation. You can taste changes that have happened. And, that's an example where even people who are doing a lot of work with non-alcoholic drinks might not be aware of the latest developments and the latest techniques and how to identify those, and how to compare sort of which drinks are using the very latest techniques and getting the best results, and which drinks perhaps need to be reformulated, so it's framing it in that way as well. So the senior judges play a very, very important role in helping everybody to be completely up to date and aware of the flight they're about to taste, so that they bring their A game to it.
You know what, Chrissie? That picking up on what you just mentioned, that kind of progression of the
Yeah.
AF space is really interesting, isn't it? Because
Yeah.
I think that some of the drinks which would have, if we'd done this competition 4 years ago, if there were enough drinks out there then
Yeah.
to do this, I think the drinks that would have scored really well then would now be surpassed by
Yes.
almost everything that's coming out now. And I think that anyone who's kind of resting on their laurels and thinking we've created a great drink, we can just sit on that and keep doing the same thing forever, I think most people who do that are going to be disappointed, because there's such a lot of energy and technical expertise within the category. Like people who've grown up tasting the first generation drinks and think, actually, I've discovered a way of improving that. That actually it's improving all the time. And we saw, didn't we, CP, this year, that there's drinks which did, got a certain medal in the first year of the competition who scored less well this year, simply because there were better examples out there doing what they were doing. So their product isn't worse than it was a year ago. It's simply that it's been surpassed. And I think that's a really interesting place for the category to be in.
It's almost as if watching the evolution of the category. I've been watching animal history programs with my kids lately, and sort of it's the same sort of thing. It's looking at the birds when they were dinosaurs to where they are now, and it's the same with the drinks. It's interesting to hear you say that you think that even in just 4 years there's been such an evolution in the category, because it just opens up the possibility to what we could be looking at in another few years.
Yeah, it does. I mean, the standards, we saw a big jump in the standards just in 1 year. So I think things are moving quite quickly.
And actually, and a lot less of that kind of that chili cough thing that was a big factor for spirits. The idea that everyone put lots of kind of capsicum and stuff in it to recreate the burn of alcohol. It's like, I don't think that's the best bit of an alcoholic drink in any case. So I don't know why anyone would want to replicate it as much as they do. And I think we're seeing a lot less of that, for instance. So really, and when people do use it, I think they're balancing it far better than they used to. We had an absolutely stupendously good tequila, alcohol-free tequila came in this year, and it was knockout brilliant. We were showing it at London Wine Fair, and everyone who tasted it was like, this is amazing, where can we get it? And it's like, well, America. So sadly, you're going to have to fly to the States to get it. At the moment, I don't think they're exporting it, but it was breathtakingly good. I mean, it tasted like a really good tequila, only without the alcohol, and you just didn't miss it. And, that kind of thing, I think if they'd done that a few years ago, it would have been clunky and clumsy, and it would have tasted kind of hot and overspiced. And it was none of those things. It was complex and smooth and balanced and just brilliant. And that kind of thing, when you think people can make a drink as awkward to create as tequila, which doesn't have those kind of big, rich, oaky flavors that you get in, whiskey and rum and so on. If you can get that kind of level of finesse with a spirits category like tequila, then really you're onto something extraordinary. So
yeah, if anyone's interested, it was called The Spirit of Tequila by Free Spirits. So
thank you for digging me out of that hole which I'd put myself in without any information, Chrissie. Thank you.
You see, it's not that I've got a good memory, it's that I've got our website in front of me, and actually we should plug our website, because it really is looking through the results, you can search for different types of drinks. So I just did a search on spirits which won gold, and there it was, it jumped out at me. So
while you're talking about then, Chrissie, what is the web address and what can people go there and find out?
Go on, Chris, you're good at this.
I might.
Okay. I was get jumbled up halfway through.
Yeah, okay. It's www.worldafawards.com. And there's everything. There's kind of a few nice little articles we've got up there about kind of trends in the category, and kind of features and a bit of news and so on. And then all the results. So if there's a big kind of tab saying results, if you go on that, you can, as Chrissie says, you can filter by everything from alcohol level. So you can filter by 0.5, or if you want complete zero, you can filter for drinks that are at zero. You can filter by the country it was made in. You can filter by drink style, producer name, whatever you want. So it's actually hugely usable, even by Luddite journalists such as myself have had few problems using it. I just happen to have forgotten to get it on my website, on my screen, as we're talking. So.
And you can see the trophy winners. We haven't spoken about those yet, but you can see the products that won trophies.
So what is it that distinguishes a trophy winner then? So we've had the judging, we've done the tasting in the morning, you've then done the medals in the afternoon and said goodbye to those that you didn't think were quite worthy just yet. So that's a 2-day process, and then there is what seems like a break to the outside world, but yourselves and your senior team are then looking at which of these drinks are the cream of the crop. How does that process all go?
Yeah, that's right. So this year we held it a few weeks later. We were at Fortnum and Mason in their wonderful sort of third floor food and drink studio. And it's a very challenging tasting. So we have, I think, about 55 gold medals, Chris, is that right?
Yeah.
And so if you imagine the categories, so obviously we're looking at things like the best spirit or the best wine or best alternative to wine. So, and there can only be one winner. So we'll have gold medals that, for white wines, rosé wines, sparkling wines, but the trophy can only be won by one of those. So the judges have to taste these different wines and pick the winner. So obviously it needs to be judges who really do have a good understanding of what's great and so on. So that's what happens there. And we have some special what we call spotlight trophies as well, which are not so much about whether something is a wine or a beer or a spirit. We have them for instance, we have the best ethical drink and the best organic, the best halal. So those are very interesting to taste as well, because then you might be tasting a spirit alongside a beer, alongside some original drink. We have a best original drink trophy as well, by the way. So yeah, those are very challenging to judge, but very, very exciting to judge, because you really just tasting gold medals.
How many trophy winners did you have this year then?
13 is the answer. So we had, I think, 7 or 8 category trophies. So that's, I can read them off actually. Best aperitif, cocktail ingredient, beer, wine alternative, spirit, original drink, and best cocktail. And then we've got the 4 kind of category spotlight trophies. That's organic, halal, ethical, and best value. So they're sort of slightly different, but I think those, though, again, there's something that's a bit different about the alcohol-free space, because I think for a lot of people who are looking for these kind of drinks, these things really matter. I think they matter more than they would in the world of alcohol. So, as you say, people who've never drunk for whatever reason, so the halal one's an obvious example, or people who want to drink ethically. A lot of people who are interested in alcohol-free, those things matter. So we've got drinks that are B Corp certified and give a lot of money back to worthy causes and stuff like this. So those are the kind of drinks that are in with the chance of winning that one. And again, that's different about this competition, I think.
Yeah, fantastic. Because I do. That was a bit of a cheeky question, because obviously I do know how many trophy winners you had, because you very kindly allowed me to share that in the magazine. So I'll flash it up on the screen for those who are watching on YouTube, so that they can see all of the amazing drinks. And you're really touching the producers here as well. So it's not just about the consumers. I can't remember which one it was, but one of the producers, one of the trophy winners, had only been in production for a couple of months. And they were so excited that they had won. They were beside themselves that they'd got this trophy. And they're like, we haven't even sorted out all of our back of office stuff yet. We're not even in all the places we want to be. And we've only been doing it for a few months.
It's really fascinating, Denise, because, on the one hand, we have a trophy that was won by an Asda product. Yes. You could go into your local Asda and it's on the shelf and buy it. They're dark spiced. But then on the other hand, like you say, we have products that have won trophies made by tiny producers, husband and wife, or sort of one man band, as it were. And I think that's kind of one of the exciting things. I mean, one that I love is that the best beer trophy was won by Belgium's oldest family brewery. And if we'll think of Belgian beer, I mean, it's famously strong, isn't it? Lots of alcohol. And this non-alcoholic beer was brewed by the 14th generation. I think I've got that right, haven't I, Chris? 14th generation, the guys of this family. And I mean, imagine, how that feels in that family with all of that tradition to break out and do something so new and to do it so well that you go straight in and you win a trophy.
Yeah, and then you've got the guys in Germany, Franz von Fein, who started up, I think, about 6 months before lockdown. So I don't think their timing was great, and they did it literally. I don't think they really thought about it commercially at all. They just thought, we'd quite like to drink something without alcohol because we're now working and think that people don't want to go to work with a hangover. So they just literally jumped into it. And, they're a tiny operation. There's just the two of them started it out, and they did absolutely brilliantly. So they got a trophy for their Rubin aperitif, and they got another gold and a couple of silvers and stuff.
They entered two products, both got gold, and one of them got a trophy. I mean, what can you say?
So, I love that. You've got guys who've been in the process for like 3 or 4 years, and people who've been there for 14 generations. And I think the Bloody Virgin Mary trophy, won the best cocktail trophy. I think they've literally been, I don't know how long they've been going, but even less time than the guys in Germany.
I think about 5 minutes.
Yeah. Extraordinary. I love that. I like the fact that all these guys are competing on an even playing field, and you don't know what any of them are when you taste them, because obviously they're all tasted blind. Nobody knows what anything is. So I really like that. I love that egalitarian nature of it.
Yeah. And it's real proof of how this category is moving quickly and new things are coming into it. It's wonderful.
Absolutely. So what do you think we can expect from the WAFAs for, I was going to say 2023, but that's going the wrong way, 2025? I'm assuming that you've already sort of got your thinking caps on and sort of processes in place. How do you think the WAFAs 2025 are going to look?
One thing that we did this year that we didn't do last year, I think was a huge success, and that something we'll definitely develop and take forward. We gave a special trophy for the best drinks range, and that's only possible because we're starting to get both bigger companies, and we're starting to see the smaller producers expand their ranges. So for that particular trophy, you had to enter a minimum of 5 drinks, and you had to produce a certain amount of volume, and we took all of the data from the producers, and so this is where you've got really big sort of international drinks corporations that have decided to create something non-alcoholic, competing with people who started up under a railway arch in London and have grown. And actually, I think we were both thrilled that it was actually the latter that won it this time round. It was Duke's that won it for their cordialities and their sparkling drinks. But that was a huge change, I think, that we could see, companies growing and bigger companies coming in. And I think we're expecting to see quite a lot more of that next year. So I think the one-man bands will still be there, but I think the bigger companies will as well.
Yeah. So to be in with a shout of winning the best range, A, you have to enter quite a lot of products. B, they all have to get a medal. Yeah. So you can't be in the running if you enter 10 products and only half of them get a gold or something. Everything's got to be good. And so that's a pretty high bar to set. And we had, 2 or 3 companies that were seriously slugging it out. And yeah, it's a really great thing. I mean, Dukes are doing amazing stuff, and I think he mentioned he's got lots of lovely listings and stuff on the back of having won. I think it's helped to unlock a few doors for him, which is great because what we all want and what we are hoping to achieve with the competition is that people who do good things should be rewarded. So that they should be the drinks that people want to look for and want to drink. The public and the so on, the journalists want to write about it. These are the ones to concentrate on because they're doing the best stuff, and then that raises the standard for the category. It gets everyone excited about what they're drinking, and it gets more kind of energy and so on into alcohol free, which is precisely where we're trying to go with it.
Amazing. You, the World Alcohol Free Awards, obviously you're both based in the UK. Do you think that at some point in the future you might take the experience and the judging to another place, another country, or is that a logistical nightmare?
I think logistics plays a part in it, and it comes down to history. The UK has for many centuries imported wines and spirits and drinks from around the world, and I think it's I mean, I've grown up knowing that if you go to France you can see French wines on the shelves, but you're not going to see wines from South Africa or Australia. Whereas in the UK you see everything, and what that means is the infrastructure here is good. The import process, whilst it's not always simple and straightforward, I think it works slightly. It's more used to different types of drinks coming in from lots of different countries, so that is an advantage, obviously, and we're both based here. But there, we're open to considering what might happen in future. There's a very small. We've identified one very small situation where there's a type of drink that we can't judge in the UK. We judge functional drinks. We mentioned them earlier, drinks which have some kind of ingredient that affects you in some way or does something for your body. And most of us will have seen CBD drinks, cannabidiol, but in America, you can get some drinks which have THC in them, which is a different compound derived from cannabis, and it does have, I think it has psychoactive properties. Now, you can't even bring that into the UK as a free sample. I think we only had one company contact us to say they'd like to enter, and we had to say no. But we'll keep an open mind on this. At the moment, the UK works well, though. It means wherever we go, we're going to have to ship samples from around the world, and we're going to have to ship judges from around the world. So, wherever we go, it's going to have to be a major hub that works for that.
I like the idea of shipping judges. It makes you sound like you just wrap them up and send them to DHL.
Yeah. Some of our judges are so keen, they'd probably do that.
You had some great judges. Obviously, I knew quite a few people there. It was lovely to meet some new faces. Some people who are really leading the way in the low-no industry. Some people who are coming up and perhaps not making as much noise, but having a really great impact. So it was amazing to see that eclectic range, because there were people who make drinks, people who serve drinks. You ran the gamut of all those who really are passionate about the industry. And I think that comes through in everything that you do and everything that you say. So it's real passion and drive to help promote what is a new, burgeoning, but struggling in some ways sector that's trying to do so much good for so many people. And one of the things, excuse me, I must say that I love very much about your approach, from both of you, is that at no point throughout this conversation or any conversation we had before do you demonize alcohol or make it about being sober or make it about not drinking alcohol. It's about the positives of presenting alcohol-free drinks to those that want them for whatever reason. And I think that's a really important message to put out there, because I know there are some people who see something like an alcohol-free awards and think it's all about being sober and saying down with booze, but it's not. It's about saying, look at this great stuff that you can have when you choose not to have the booze.
Yeah, it's not a zero-sum game, is it? For alcohol-free to come up, it doesn't mean that alcohol has to come down
No.
necessarily. So I think, you know, there are people out there who can't drink alcohol for whatever reason, but I think that's not where the major growth in the category is going to come from. I think if you look on alcohol-free social media, then you'd think it might be, but I think that's not entirely representative. I think it's, the growth is going to come from ordinary people dabbling with it, discovering they like it, and then expanding their experiences with it. I was chatting to a producer a couple of months ago about this, and they said when they first created their alcohol-free gin, they thought that their target market would be kind of yoga mums in the home counties. So the kind of people you might see on social media who are kind of doing Pilates in a beautiful kind of sitting room with a giant, marble island behind them. And he said actually their biggest market was just blue collar people in Scotland who just wanted to drink a gin and tonic during the week and didn't want to have any alcohol because they didn't want to run the risk of being hungover when they went to work. And it was just a kind of nice, sober treat for themselves. So they took that learning on board pretty quickly and reconfigured a lot of the rest of their range and their marketing appropriately. And I think that's quite illustrative. I think that's probably where a lot of the growth will come from. Certainly in Europe. I think maybe in the States there's a slightly different dynamic at play. I think there's a bigger sober movement going on in the States, so it might be more of a thing out there. But generally speaking, I think for sure, yeah, it's all about lifting up alcohol free, not pushing down on alcohol.
It's about making sure that when people spend their hard-earned money, they get a really delicious drink. That's what it is.
Absolutely, giving them quality. And Chris, you and I were both at the CAM industry event a little while ago, and one of their biggest stats was 75% of the UK are moderating their drinking in some way. So it's those people, and you're right, it's not the staunchly sober who are the biggest market share. If Low and No is to survive as a sector, we need to make sure that those who are still imbibing alcohol feel welcome to come and drink at our table when they feel like they don't want to have any alcohol.
It's the biggest challenge, isn't it? Is that, as you mentioned, the figures of people who are looking either to drink no alcohol on a night out or to mix alcohol and non-alcoholic on a night out are huge, and I don't think that's fully catered for yet within hospitality or to an extent the off trade. If you work on the assumption that 65% of UK visits to a hospitality venue involve alcohol free of some description at some time, okay, and then marry that with the percentage of a drinks list which is alcohol free, like good alcohol free, not just kind of soft drinks, there's a massive disconnect. And I think that the trade needs to rethink its own attitude to alcohol free and how people drink and what they're looking for. And it's one of these weird things where this trend is being pushed along by consumers and producers, and that the middle section of the whole equation is kind of being reluctantly dragged along by both elements. And I think once they properly get their head around it, then we'll see a real explosion of interest and much more choice for other people. Because we've seen there's some astonishingly good drinks out there, and they're not all big production things. They're not all going to sit on the shelves of a major supermarket who want tens of thousands of cases. But there's a lot of really good stuff out there. Have I disappeared?
Seems we may have lost Chris for a little bit, but that's okay. I'm sure he'll come back in. Whilst we wait for him, Chrissie, how do lots of people who listen to this podcast are both consumers, but they are brands as well. So if there are any brands out there that want to get involved, how do they go about getting their liquids on your lips so that they've got a chance with being a trophy winner for next year?
It's really easy, Denise. They just need to come to our website, which Chris gave you the details of before, worldafawards.com, and right at the on the first page, they can register. They can put in their name and their email, and we'll let them know when entries open. And if they want to go further than that, if they go into the menus, there's a login stroke enter where they can start, putting their company's details or whatever. But either way, it's very simple. They, just come to the website and it's all done there.
Excellent.
Obviously, assuming that your internet connection remains stable, of
Yeah.
course. Which I was just in the middle of a lengthy, excited monologue, and then realised that literally nobody was listening to me because I was just talking to myself in my study.
Yeah,
It's like,
yeah,
We're just
yeah.
ignoring you, Chris. We thought we'd just let you.
Yeah, it wasn't deliberate. No.
No, listen. I think you made some really interesting points there, and I think that any brands that are out there who are thinking of an opportunity to get their product in front of people who are 100% open to what they do should definitely give you guys a shout and get involved, get submitting your liquid in, and anyone out there who'd be interested in judging who really is passionate already about the industry and knows a thing or two about great flavour should definitely put themselves forward, because the more people we can get involved in this and the more people we can get spreading the word, the more we can help the members of Low No Nation to realise they've got some fantastic options out there for them. I'm going to let you go shortly, but before I do, I ask everyone who comes on the podcast the now famous, in my own head, barbecue question. And so that is, we are recording now mid-July. We had summer. There were 2 weeks that had 4 days between them of sunshine. So if you had been at a barbecue on one of those wonderfully sunny days, and I know that you both are not teetotal, but we'll imagine that for this barbecue you were deciding not to drink full strength alcohol, and you're bringing along your own low, no, or light drinks to enjoy. We'll start with you, Chrissie. What do you like to drink on those occasions?
Well, I would take a couple of things along. One of them is really informed by my experiences in Australia, where they tend to drink, they're very good at Barbies, and they tend to drink sparkling Shiraz, which we're not really used to in this country. But I'm thrilled to say that we had a fantastic sort of medal and trophy winner called the Eden Vale Premium Reserve Sparkling Shiraz. It's actually won a gold medal 2 years running. I think there are only 3 products that have managed that. And it's just so good, particularly with meat or with sort of char grilled vegetables. It really has that kind of smoky, bonfirey. You just want to drink it. Sort of lovely, fizzy red berries, but savoury as well. So that would be an absolute must take along. And chilled. People don't think of chilling red wine, but a sparkling Shiraz, you serve it cold, which is delicious. But I'd take along as well, I mentioned the Asda drink earlier, the non-alcoholic dark spiced drink. It's really sort of Asda's take on a spiced rum in a sense. It's lovely and dark and spicy. And for summer, sort of let down with some cola. It's just so easy going. It hits the vibe, of sort of sitting around, maybe post barbecue or whatever. That would do it for me. And obviously, it's a halal product. It won the halal trophy. So I've got some Muslim friends who would be very happy with that. So they're my choices.
I've not tried that one. I have tried, because it's produced by Spirits of Virtue, isn't it? They've done a range for them, and I've tried their pink. It's like a pink gin sort of alternative, and it's so yummy. So I definitely need to go and try the dark spice one. Good choice. It's great. And Chris, how about yourself?
Right. So I've got 3 drinks because you asked me for 2. And I'm going to annoy the hell out of you by not answering the question. So if sometimes you go to barbecues, right, don't you? And there's people that have like games of boules and stuff like this before the game and things like that. Now, I want to channel my inner old Frenchman, right? And we had a really good drink that won the best spirit trophy, and it's an absolute spit for pastis. And it's kind of like yellowy green. It tastes exactly like it. It's got that lovely kind of tongue tingle that you get with proper alcoholic pastis. I think that, long with a couple of cubes of ice in it, while I'm shuffling around grunting, playing Boole would be absolutely brilliant. If I arrive too late for that and straight into the kind of barbecuing bit,
We've got a
I'm
hand
going to
up from
be.
Chrissie.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
You did say the name. It's called Night Orient.
Oh,
Night
yeah.
Orient Anise from Universe Drink. So
Yeah,
there you
I should
go.
have completely told you what it was. That would have been useful, wouldn't it?
I mean, it's helpful. I can figure it out, but yeah.
I just want you to guess. You have to just keep Googling it until you find it. So, and then the other one, I think if I arrived to do the barbecuing, being a bloke, I would just stand around the barbecue for 2 hours staring at things as they cook and just poking them with a stick and suggesting that they move the sausage half an inch to the left. And to do that, you have to drink beer because that's the rules. So I'd be there with the Ramon, which is the brewery Roman one. That's our Belgian trophy winner. And it's a lovely, light, balanced, pale style of beer. It's great. But the one I'd be drinking probably most of the evening would be a kombucha. And it's from a producer called Kombustache. He's a little French guy with an extraordinary moustache, like a real Hercule Poirot curly moustache. And he entered a couple of kombuchas last year, both of which got gold. He entered another one this year, which got a gold and an organic trophy. I was quite skeptical about kombucha. I didn't understand it. It had a few really funky ones, which I didn't like. I struggled with that kind of slightly sour kind of acidity note of it. His drinks are breathtakingly good. And literally every time I've opened one of his bottles for anybody, it's been empty within about 10 minutes. It's just completely gluggable. It's swiggable. You can chuck a bit of ice in it if you feel like it. You can have it with food. You can drink it the whole night. It is breathtakingly good. And he's a really nice guy with, as I said, a fabulous moustache. What more reasons do you want for drinking something? Come on.
And it's called kombustache. I mean,
yeah.
The
specific one I'm talking about is his La Perle Noire, Black Pearl, is the one that he sent in this year. It's a wonderful, wonderful drink.
The design of the label actually has his moustache on it, and it was really funny. It was last year's competition. We were on our stand at London Wine Fair, and we'd got it there. We had no idea why it was called Kombustache. And then this guy turned up at the stand. We'd never met him. And we literally knew who he was the minute we saw him. It's like, this must be your kombucha. And yeah, it was. He was Michelle.
Excellent. Guys, thank you so much. Great recommendations. I will make sure that all of the winners and trophy winners that we've discussed today, they're all linked in the show notes so that people can go and check them out for themselves. I'll also make sure that your website and your Instagram are linked as well, so that anyone who wants to go and find out a little bit more about what you're doing or get in touch with any questions, they know where to find you. On a personal note, I think that what you're doing, your stance on your approach to it is more than commendable. You are beyond trophy winners. I think I can't wait to see what else happens with the next year's iterations of the awards. And it's only going to grow and get bigger and bigger and bigger. So I hope for your sakes you've got a bank of people waiting to help you out with all the admin, because I know that it's a huge amount of work. So thank you very much on behalf of the industry for what you're doing. It's a fabulous job.
Oh, thank you, Denise. Really appreciate it. And congrats to you. A brilliant magazine. What a fabulous addition to the space. Indeed, the world of publishing. Well done.
Yeah. Excellent. Well done.
Thanks, guys. Take care.